It started with a single shot, one bullet, not fired at the enemy, but at a Russian colonel. Inside the trenches near Chasiv, northeastern Ukraine, a group of exhausted, broken conscripts allegedly turned their rifles against their own commanding officer. Ukrainian intelligence claims the colonel had ordered a suicidal frontal assault. Instead, his men executed him. Then, they called a hotline. They dialed the now infamous Ukrainian surrender line known as the I Want to Live program, and they laid down their weapons. Dozens surrendered without a fight. Others simply walked away into captivity or deserted into the nearby woods. No shots fired, no resistance given. This is more than an isolated act of mutiny. It's a crack in the dam, a symptom of something far deeper, far deadlier, unraveling from within. This is the story of how discipline is breaking, how the battlefield has become a slaughterhouse of drones, and why Russia's war machine may be reaching its point of no return. Because Russia isn't just losing soldiers, it's losing something far more vital, the trust and willingness of its own troops. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, it marched in with one of the world's largest militaries, boasting over 1 million active duty personnel and stockpiles of Soviet-era firepower. On paper, it looked invincible, but 3 years later, that military is bleeding out. Estimates now suggest that Russia has suffered between 750,000 to 1 million casualties, killed or wounded. Let that number sink in. That's larger than the entire active-duty military of France, the UK, and Germany combined. And behind that figure are real people, real families, real trauma. Here's where it gets worse. 70% of Russia's destroyed equipment has been taken out by drones. That means the battlefield isn't just deadly, it's transparent. A surveillance panopticon where every movement is cataloged, tracked, and potentially annihilated within minutes. There is no place to hide, no rear echelon, no safe supply line. In Ukraine's drone-dominated war zone, movement is death. Supply convoys disappear in fireballs. Command tents vanish mid-briefing. Imagine being a Russian soldier. You're ordered to advance across open ground, with no air cover, no electronic jamming, and no support. Overhead, a silent swarm of quadcopters watching every move. You run. The drones follow. They buzz like mosquitoes, but they sting like gods. This isn't just terrifying. It's demoralizing. It's psychological warfare that never sleeps, and it's breaking the back of Russia's command and control structure, one melted tank at a time. Over 5,000 Russian officers have been killed since the start of the war. That includes at least 12 generals, an extraordinary figure for any modern conflict. It's a hemorrhaging of leadership unseen since World War II. This isn't by accident. Ukrainian forces have ruthlessly hunted Russian command nodes. Their artillery, HIMARS systems, and drone strike teams have turned officers into high-value targets. And when officers vanish, units collapse. Entire battalions have been lost simply because their leaders were turned into ash. Even the Kremlin's most elite formations, paratroopers, naval infantry, Spetsnaz, have been gutted. What used to be elite spearhead units are now hollow shells, restaffed with barely trained conscripts or ex-convicts fresh from Russian prisons. The chain of command? Fragmented. Communication lines? Jammed or broken. The morale? Worse than low, it's toxic. A silent cancer spreading across the front. We need to talk about drones. Ukraine has fielded a staggering number of FPV drones, some costing less than $500, and turning them into guided missiles. They fly through windows, down trench lines, into tank hatches. They strike with surgical precision, and there are tens of thousands of them. This swarm warfare has changed everything. Russia's legacy doctrine, based on massed armor, heavy artillery, and rigid Soviet-style hierarchy, cannot keep up. The doctrine that once crushed Grozny is now choking in the forests of Donbass. Russian units are being picked apart before they even reach the line of contact. Platoon after platoon is sent forward, only to be diced up by unseen machines, operated by teenagers with Xbox controllers. One Ukrainian commander put it simply, "Russia is fighting 1985. We're fighting 2025. This is why Ukrainian officers say that Russia is now not just fighting an enemy, it is fighting the future. And it's losing. But the collapse isn't just technological, it's human. The morale crisis inside Russia's army is real, and it's growing. The alleged mutiny at Chasey is one of many signs of the deeper disillusionment metastasizing across the front. While we can't confirm the exact details, the story has spread like wildfire because it taps into a terrifying question for the Kremlin. Thousands have already chosen to surrender. The Ukrainian "I want to live" hotline is not a rumor. It's real, verified, and actively used. Russian troops call in. They follow instructions, and they defect. Some even bring their weapons and intelligence. One Ukrainian officer joked, "We're recruiting more Russians than they are." Even Russia's conscription system is cracking. It's not just about numbers. It's about who gets sent to die, about who the Kremlin deems expendable. In the region of Buryatia, the death rate is 66 per 100,000. In Moscow, just 3.6 per 100,000. That's a 17-fold disparity. Ethnic minorities and poor rural regions are bleeding for a war that Muscovites watch on TV or ignore completely. The result? A two-tier army where loyalty is forced, not earned, where sacrifice is dictated by your postal code. This is not a unified army. It is an empire feeding on its own margins, and those margins are starting to resist. Then there's the question of foreign fighters. Reports from Ukrainian and South Korean sources claim that North Korean and Iranian personnel are present in Russian units. Unconfirmed, but credible enough that NATO intelligence is watching closely. The logic is simple. Russia needs bodies, and foreign allies are willing to help, but there's a cost. Different languages, different tactics, zero cohesion. Friendly fire incidents have reportedly spiked. Some Russian officers reportedly refuse to brief or coordinate with foreign units. One drone operator told reporters, "We don't even know who half these guys are. This isn't an army, it's a patchwork." A Frankenstein force cobbled together out of desperation, and when patchworks tear, they unravel fast. What we're watching isn't just a failing strategy. It may be the slow-motion implosion of an empire, because what's happening in the trenches of Chasey is just one point in a much larger pattern. The Russian military isn't just stretched, it's hollowed. From command posts to logistics hubs, from officer corps to morale, it's a structure eroding from within. The gears are still turning, but they're grinding against each other. The machine is slowing, shuddering, and starting to fail. And the strain is starting to show at every level, not only in combat effectiveness but in national cohesion, in public trust, and in the very belief that this war can still be won. In 2025, Russia is spending nearly 40% of its federal budget on this war. That's not just unsustainable, it's catastrophic. Schools are shuttering, hospitals are underfunded, entire regions are sliding into economic stagnation. Social programs have been gutted, infrastructure projects have stalled, pensions are delayed, citizens are growing restless. And meanwhile, over 900,000 citizens have fled the country since full-scale mobilization began. That number includes some of the brightest minds and most skilled professionals in the nation. Not draft dodgers, not criminals, professionals, engineers, doctors, teachers, artists, scientists, the kind of people who hold a nation together, who create, design, build, and heal. This is brain drain on an industrial scale, and it's irreversible. It's not just that the military is cracking, it's that the country itself is bleeding talent, trust, and time. A war that was supposed to last weeks is now consuming entire futures. A generation is being lost to exile, trauma, or death. You cannot win a 21st century war when your best minds are living in exile, your soldiers are terrified of drones, and your economy is mortgaged to the front line. Russia's military doctrine was built in the shadow of World War II and forged by the Cold War. It prioritizes mass, control, and centralization. Orders come from the top. Flexibility is discouraged. Discipline is obedience. But the battlefield has changed. Ukraine is operating like a startup, agile, decentralized, tech-savvy, using satellite links, AI target identification, open-source data, and commercial drone integration. Ukrainian forces adapt in real time. Tactical innovation happens daily. New units are formed overnight. Entire strike operations are coordinated through secure mobile apps. A Russian platoon might wait hours for orders from brigade command. A Ukrainian squad gets targeting coordinates from a teenager in Kiev live streaming drone feeds. This isn't just a war of weapons, it's a war of cultures, of speed versus rigidity, of creativity versus bureaucracy. of 21st century improvisation against 20th century repetition. And the rigid Soviet command structure is not just outdated, it's becoming a liability, an anchor dragging a fractured army further down. To understand the collapse, you need to look at the men being sent to fight and the men being buried after. Russia's conscription system is not just unfair, it's strategic. Poor regions, ethnic minorities, politically irrelevant communities, these are the primary sources of frontline troops. The result is a military caste system, a war fought by the voiceless for the benefit of the untouched. And the resentment is boiling. Reports of brawls, desertions, and even local mutinies are increasing. Telegram channels inside Russia are now filled with complaints, pleas, and videos of units refusing orders. One soldier in a leaked video says, "We are not meat. We are not going to die for nothing." Another says, "We haven't eaten in 2 days. Our officers are gone. They left us." This isn't just mutiny, it's collapse in motion. But what about the stories of North Korean and Iranian soldiers fighting alongside Russians? As we said earlier, these claims are unverified, but they are widely circulated by Ukrainian and South Korean intelligence. Satellite imagery, intercepted radio chatter, and captured documents point towards some foreign involvement. And here's what matters. Even if only partially true, these reports symbolize a Russian military that can no longer sustain itself. It needs outside manpower. It needs foreign expertise. It needs what it once scoffed at. But adding unfamiliar soldiers to a collapsing force doesn't bring strength. It brings chaos. Units don't speak the same language. Commanders don't know who's reporting to whom. The chain of command phrase then breaks. Language barriers, command confusion, friendly fire, drone misidentification, delayed medical evacuations, units turning on each other. It's the equivalent of gluing new parts onto a collapsing machine. The frame is still cracked, the oil is leaking, the gears are broken. Meanwhile, Ukraine is getting stronger. Western weapons continue to arrive, but more importantly, Ukrainian innovation continues to evolve. FPV drone factories now run out of repurposed warehouses. Algorithms assign drone strike priorities. New drone variants are being developed weekly. Some carry explosives, others drop medical kits. A few have begun testing swarm coordination. Brigades train with VR simulations before setting foot on the front. Recruits practice mine evasion in digital arenas. Officers conduct war games on tablets synced with NATO servers. The asymmetry grows wider every month. Ukraine doesn't need to outnumber Russia. It just needs to outthink it. And it's doing exactly that. Not with overwhelming firepower, but with precision, with adaptation, with brains. Russia is trying to grind. Ukraine is trying to evolve. One is running out of options, the other is just getting started. What happens when a soldier no longer trusts his commander? When an army can no longer guarantee food, safety, or victory? When a nation sacrifices its poorest sons while the rich stay untouched? You get what we're seeing now. An army that still moves, but no longer believes. A nation that still spends, but no longer convinces. Weapons can win battles, but only trust can hold an army together. And in Russia's case, that trust may already be gone, not just among its soldiers, but among its people, its allies, and maybe even its leaders. What do you think? Can Russia reverse this collapse, or is this the beginning of the end? Let us know in the comments, and subscribe for more deep dives into modern conflicts.